Celestia is a new cryptocurrency that released about 2 months ago, and I personally think it's going to revolutionize how we build on the blockchain. Now, this token is actually my #1 play for 2024, and in a non-financial advice way, I think that this token is going to make millionaires. So in this video, I'm going to tell you guys everything you need to know about Celestia and why I'm personally so bullish on what their team is building. Now, a lot of you guys probably heard of Celestia already, just because it's been all over the crypto space and a ton of people are talking about it, mostly because it released at only $2 per token November 1st, and it's already sitting at $14 per token. And this is one of those tokens that have just gone on a crazy run with no signs of a major pullback. And a lot of people that I've been watching have said, hey, maybe stay away from Celestia. It's gone on this crazy run. It's overvalued, etc., etc. But I personally think this is just the beginning for Celestia. And even though different pullbacks may come, this technology is here to stay. So what exactly is Celestia, and why do I think this project is going to be such a big deal? Well, guys, they are the first modular blockchain network, and they're using this new data availability network to securely scale with a large number of users and also make it easy for projects to launch their own blockchain. Now, the way they're able to do this is there's this new architecture they designed called data availability sampling, and it allows blockchains to be very scalable when it comes to people running nodes to secure the network with consensus as well as data availability. It's so light node, guys, that you can actually run this using a smartphone, which makes it easy for anyone to run this, which makes it more decentralized. Now, what this allows is it allows projects to build on top of that data availability as well as consensus layer using Celestia, and now all of a sudden they can kind of customize how they want to handle the execution and settlement for their blockchain. To explain that more, because I know that's a little bit of a techie conversation, when you have a blockchain, you actually have 4 different layers, guys. You have execution, settlement, consensus, and data availability. And just to give you guys a brief overview of what they are, execution is all about handling transaction executions and giving status updates. Settlements are about resolving disputes as well as facilitating cross-chain connections. And then consensus and data availability, which is what Celestia is providing, is establishing an agreement on transactions in the order of which they happened, as well as providing the publication of transactions on the network itself. If you've been in the crypto space for a while, you'll know that a lot of these different blockchains are struggling with the same trilemma. How can we be decentralized as well as secure as a blockchain, but at the same time have speed and scalability to help reduce costs for the users and make transactions a lot faster? And a lot of times these blockchains have been handling all 4 of those layers all within their one blockchain. It's called a monolithic blockchain, and it slows a lot of things down, and a lot of times they have to sacrifice in one of these areas. And because it doesn't make sense to sacrifice on security, you often have issues with decentralization where there aren't a lot of nodes or a lot of providers, so it's a very centralized blockchain, or you run into this issue where the speed of the actual blockchain is really slow if they decided to take the decentralized route. So there's been this huge issue with trying to solve this trilemma, and by having a modular blockchain or having a modular design such as Celestia, now all of a sudden, instead of one blockchain having to do all this stuff, you can now build on top of Celestia. They'll handle that consensus and data availability, so your blockchain is automatically decentralized through them through all these different light nodes. So it's kind of like a pizza, guys, where you get to pick your toppings, and at the same time, because you're building on top of Celestia and because they're handling that data availability as well as consensus, you automatically will have a decentralized blockchain. So now you can focus on security and scaling. So it's one of those situations where a lot of people are asking, hey, is this new innovative tech, is this new modular way of doing things going to finally solve this blockchain trilemma? And in my personal opinion, it does, because projects no longer have to worry about sacrificing super big hardware in order for more people to afford it and to be more decentralized. On the offset of now all of a sudden, if you have cheaper tech and cheaper hardware, now you don't have as much throughput and you don't have as much scalability. So it's been this huge issue where it's like, okay, we want to be fully decentralized, because the whole point of crypto is it's decentralized. We don't have some sort of central authority that can just change anything, but at the same time, we can't sacrifice on all these transactions. So in my opinion, this is just a no-brainer way of doing things, and I'm surprised that this hasn't been built yet, and I think this is one of the most innovative new crypto blockchain projects, whatever you want to call it, that's come out in the past couple years. So to summarize everything I said, guys, because I know it's very techy, what Celestia is doing is they built a new data availability sampling technology that allows a lot of users to run their own nodes, even from a smartphone. They then are able to get all of this data availability and consensus and offer that to other projects that want to build on top of the Celestia layer. So projects can customize their own blockchain, they can pick what does the executions and settlement, but at the base, they have that decentralized information and all of those different node operators coming from the Celestia chain itself. Now let's dive into some of these other aspects of Celestia now that you guys kind of have the general summarized information of how that blockchain actually works. So we have TIA, we have about 1 billion total tokens right now, but this is not the max supply, guys, and they're going to have an inflation schedule of about 8% in the first year, and this is then going to decrease 10% per year until reaching a floor of 1.5% inflation annually. Now, when it comes to the utility of actually holding this TIA token, all of these different blockchains that end up building on Celestia are going to need to pay for blob space. They're going to need to pay for all of this different information. And the cool thing is they have to pay in TIA. So it's one of those situations where if this modular blockchain concept works, and if this major trilemma is solved, and you have all these individuals and all these companies needing to build on Celestia, you're now going to have all of those fees and all of that buy pressure constantly happening on the token. It also allows for new blockchains that are rolling up on Celestia to use the TIA token for their gas fees. So once again, another use case for their token. Now, most of the different blockchains that are building on Celestia are going to launch their own token. Maybe they're doing some testnet stuff, or they don't want to launch their token yet. They can actually use that TIA in the beginning. You also have the proof of stake. When it comes to Celestia, it is built using Cosmos SDK, which is one of the biggest benefits of holding this token, which I'll get into, and it allows you to get about 16% APR on your TIA token, as well as a lot of different airdrops, which once again, I'll cover in a little bit. And then you have the decentralized governance aspect of this token as well, and that pretty much wraps up the utilities. I wanted to show this little graph here, just kind of showing the different inflation that's going to happen over the course of this next year. And I also want to break down their actual token allocation. Now, one of the biggest negatives that I have with Celestia right now is the fact that most of the tokens are going to VCs in the team. Only 20% of the tokens was actually allocated towards the public, where 80% is split among the team for development purposes, as well as a lot of private investors. Now, this means that they have a lot of funding, and I'm not worried about them not being able to deliver because they've already been able to deliver on all of these different products, but it does mean that we can expect a lot of sell pressure from these different VCs, and the actual token distribution isn't as good as I like to see when it comes to these different blockchains. Now, we can look at this actual TIA token unlock schedule, and what you'll notice, guys, is that there's actually no new tokens coming out until November 1st of 2024. And one of the big reasons that I think this token is going to be a big performer of this year is that we're going to have all this demand and all these projects building using Celestia, but we don't actually have any new tokens coming in up until November. And then once those are out, yes, there's going to be a big jump up on supply, but those tokens are also vested over a period of time. So it's one of those situations that if you were someone that wanted to swing trade and you were worried about those new tokens coming in, you could always sell a month or two before these token unlocks happen, or sell a portion, and then that way you kind of leverage out of your risk just in case these VCs do tend to dump on the market. Now, I don't think there's going to be that big of dumps right away because we're expecting a 2025 bull run if everything goes to plan historically. But this is one of the things you have to pay attention to, and is one of my personal negatives when it comes to investing in this token. Now that I've covered the tokenomics, the utility, and what Celestia is about, why do I think Celestia, in a non-financial advice way, is going to be one of the biggest winners of this next year, even though it's already gone on a crazy run? Well, guys, here is kind of my list here. So first point is each blockchain built on Celestia has to pay for each data call / blob space. So it's one of those situations where it's the best utility out there, where if they build a strong product, which it looks like they have, now all of a sudden, if this concept becomes big because it's solving the trilemma, theoretically, you're going to have all these different companies and all these different projects need to constantly pay for this blob space, for this information. The second thing is potential for projects to use TIA as gas. So now you have all these different blockchains that are spun up where some of them might actually use this TIA as gas, and that's another expenditure or another reason people have to buy TIA. You then on top of that have a 16% APR simply for staking this token. The next thing here, and one of the biggest things, is the airdrops. Now this is one of the reasons why I'm not afraid of buying the token right now, even though the token has gone on a massive run. And maybe you're someone that needs a dollar cost average in and you don't buy all of your TIA at once. But one of the big reasons that I think Celestia is going to outperform a lot of tokens out there is the Cosmos ecosystem narrative. There have been so many airdrops happening on Cosmos, and all of these different blockchains and all these different projects that are being built on Cosmos SDK are all interconnected. And what this allows, it allows a lot more liquidity and a lot more attention to flow in Celestia, but it also allows for a lot more airdrops. So not only are you getting the airdrops from all of these different projects that are in the Cosmos ecosystem, that are building on Cosmos, that are building on Injective, that are building on all of these different chains within their ecosystem, but you then also already have a lot of projects that are developing on Celestia, one of which is Manta, which I just made a video on. So not only can you expect to get that APR, but now you can expect to get airdrops from Cosmos, and also you can expect to get airdrops from Celestia. So it's this crazy situation, guys, and I wrote it down here, where you have Cosmos building all of these different blockchains and all these different projects building on Cosmos. You then have Celestia as one of those projects that built on Cosmos, and Celestia has already been getting a lot of airdrops. And then you have projects and blockchains that are then building on Celestia, which now, such as Manta. And then projects are then building on Manta, and those projects might now airdrop Celestia, which is what Manta was built on. So not every project is going to airdrop to Celestia, don't get me wrong, but we have so many different projects that are building in the spiderweb ecosystem that you'd be crazy to think that you're not going to get a ton of airdrops. And as we enter this next bull run, where you start having all of these major investors and major institutions that haven't gotten into crypto yet, now all of a sudden they're going to want to get into crypto, and they can easily build and deploy an interoperable and scalable blockchain using Celestia, and also get the benefits of being in the Cosmos ecosystem and their whole entire IBC. So it's absolutely cracked just the level of airdrops that we can be expecting here, especially as we enter one of these next bull runs. And just one of those airdrops can pay tenfold on the different projects that you're getting into. So this is actually the number one benefit, or one of the biggest reasons I like it, just because I think a lot of people are going to build on it, a lot of people are going to notice it, and there's going to be a lot of airdrops that happen as more projects start to develop in this ecosystem. To quickly go over some of these next points, because I went on a whole tangent there, their team is insane, very talented. Their founder actually started a hacking group at 16 and hacked into the CIA. Like, these guys are big brains. They've been working on a lot of blockchains already, and their founder's actually been studying at Harvard blockchain scaling, and this was the whole solution he came up with. So very talented team. They then have a lot of funds. They raised tens of millions of dollars to build all this out with their VCs, so we know they're well funded. There's no more tokens until November 1st, so there's no more new inflation coming out. It's only been out for 2 months, so it's still very early in the grand scheme of things. Even though a lot of people have been learning about it recently, there's still a lot to unpack, and you can kind of look at being early as a positive and negative, but in my personal opinion, the tech is one of the most innovative techs out there, and no one else is doing it. So they don't have any competition on their tech. They built something incredible. They have the infrastructure there. And it's one of those situations where instead of competing with this super saturated market where everyone's trying to launch a blockchain, you instead are helping promote those blockchains because they are building on your layer. So it's one of those additional things where we're not even at this point in the game even worried about competition. And the last point that I want to bring up here is you already have over 50 projects that are building on Celestia, so it shows the demand is already there. And some of those projects raised a ton of money, just like Manta, which I talked about in my last video. And once again, Manta then has all these projects developing under it. So this kind of spider web-like effect of having all of these interconnections and interoperability between all these projects building on Cosmos and Celestia is one of the reasons that I have such a big eye on Celestia, and one of the reasons I think it's going to perform so well in this next year. Now, before you go run off and buy all these Celestia tokens, please do your own research, guys, and realize that this has pumped like crazy. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, even though Celestia, in my opinion, is going to do very well, and in my opinion, even if it has a big pullback, you're going to make that up on airdrops and all the things they're releasing, and it's still super early for the chain, you got to be a little bit careful when buying in at the top, so to speak. So maybe your strategy is to dollar cost average into Celestia, buy a little bit, stake it, maybe buy at least $150 worth, and you can even watch my recent video where I go over what you need to know about the Cosmos ecosystem and some of these different airdrops, and I'm going to be covering a lot of the different airdrops that are happening. So just be a little bit careful on the price appreciation, but in my opinion, once again, I think Celestia is still undervalued compared to all the things they're about to release and the actual tech and team and all of those points that I brought up. The last thing that I want to bring up in this video is that our alpha group Jellycubes actually called this project before it released. I cannot believe I didn't buy in the token right when it was $2, because there was a good week to 2 weeks where it's pretty much hovering between $2 and $3. But we actually called this play before it even released, and there are a decent amount of people in our alpha group that actually made a ton of money from this play, and you can see that this was actually posted on October 30th. And one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is I know a lot of people are on the sidelines with Celestia right now and are like, oh, I don't know when to buy, it just keeps pumping. That was me, and I kept watching it pump, and I just kept watching it pump, and I just kept watching it pump. And that's what made me to decide to do a lot more research on what they're actually building and the different problems that they're trying to solve. And that's why I wanted to make this video and just say, hey guys, I know it's been going on a crazy run, but still keep your eyes on it, and it might be one of those tokens you want to DCA into. And the last thing is if you ever wanted to join our community and stay up to date on these different plays and opportunities, pick yourself up a Jellycube and join our alpha group. We're a Cardano NFT project, and I'm gonna have the YouTube video on how to actually buy one of these in the description if you're someone interested in joining our community. But outside of that, guys, I really appreciate you watching this video. I'm gonna be making a lot more videos on Celestia, on these different airdrops to farm, on upcoming projects, different token sales that I think have a lot of potential. And as always, do your own research, and I hope you have an awesome day.